has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast, here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. Of course, you need to, I can't believe you haven't already. If not, you got to get the new SportsGrid app. It is absolutely outstanding. It's the greatest thing you could ever want. It's available now both at the iOS and the Play stores. You can track scores and live odds. You can stay up to speed on all the latest content from your favorite hosts. You can watch or listen right there on the app. You can watch SportsGrid. You can listen to SportsGrid Radio, including, if you want, Carver and Lisi, weeknights at 8 p.m. East. So that is all right there for you. Once again, available both iOS and Play stores. It is smarter to be on SportsGrid. Go to sportsgrid.com/watch to catch the network and see all the platforms where you can find us. You can follow Joe on that app as well, and you'll be able to get all Joe's clips. Lots of stops for Joe as we get ready for Super Wildcard Weekend. All right, Joe. One other piece of information I wanted to give you here before I move on from that Bill game is this. Since 2010, double-digit favorites in the NFL playoffs. Actually covered a pretty good clip, Joe. 11-4 against the spread for the double-digit favorites. Of course, the Bills are the only one of those this weekend. And you think no problem, a Billy Club game. So that's just great.
It is a Billy Club game, and I guess I'll call out all of the Pittsburgh faithful that loves us, right? Because I'll just say this: one of the teams that lost as a double-digit underdog was Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers when they went on the road a couple of years ago in Arrowhead and got absolutely slapped silly by the Chiefs. So I'm thinking all Buffalo. James Cook, $1.80.
Yeah, just update the graphic now. Make it 12-4.
Make it 12.
Update the graphic.
No,
Might as well. Just update the graphic. We welcome in all of our radio affiliates. Ferrall Coast to Coast on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty. SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM 159, and Sports Byline. Great to have everybody with us. NFC side, Joe, I want to bring up the Cowboy game with you because, as usual, it's never easy. There's always got to be some little piece of drama around the Cowboys. So Mike McCarthy, I think, Joe, I've done a pretty good job, personally, since he's gotten to Dallas. It win double-digit games every year. They make the playoffs. I get it. They haven't grabbed the brass ring yet. But, of course, entering the playoffs, Jerry Jones earlier this week was asked about a report that Mike needs to do well in the postseason. Now, this is not the clip I'm going to play you. This is what he said earlier in the week. I just think his record speaks for itself. I think of what he's done and that we've put ourselves into this position over these last 3 years. We've got a lot of football left. We'll see how each game goes. So yesterday, Jerry did his weekly spot with the guys on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, and they asked him about those quotes. And, of course, Jerry said, that was not what I meant whatsoever. Here's Jerry Jones.
Coach McCarthy's under contract for next year. Secondly, I couldn't be more pleased with what he's done and how he's coached. I certainly haven't sat down here right in the middle of the playoffs and started talking to him about something like a contract or something like that.
Yeah.
And so the last thing that I want to do is spend any time talking with him about these kinds of things, on agreements, extension of agreements, especially when I've got one.
Jerry, I think our interpretation didn't come from expecting an extension. I think we took we'll see how each game goes as, well, maybe he could be not with the Cowboys anymore if the playoffs don't go right.
Well, I'm so sorry that media might interpret what I say differently. That's rare. I don't have that happen very often.
Yeah.
Well, I really think I'm going to discuss this. Damn press conference.
We had to ask you about it.
All right, those guys do a great job with Jerry every week. And Joe, he can laugh that off all he wants. But when you say something like, we'll see how each game goes, I mean, I was hypothetically giving you some scenarios earlier about Pete Carroll where I was like, if Sirianni lost, he could get chopped. If maybe there's a small percent chance that if McDermott ever lost this game on Sunday, he could get chopped. I guess I forgot to say to you, do you think if McCarthy lost to the Packers on Sunday, could he get chopped in Dallas?
Absolutely, Carver. Come on. I mean, he's the fall guy now, right? They got rid of Kellen Moore because he's calling the offensive plays. This team goes out and puts up 10 points against Green Bay, and they lose 23-10. Guess who's getting chopped on Monday? It's Mike McCarthy. You can't bow out of the playoffs again, Cowboy fans. You got to show a little resolve. You got to show a little moxie. Come on, step up, make a play. I will say, I thought Kellen Moore was like a deer in the headlights in a big game. He deserved to get chopped. Look at what his Chargers did this year. Absolutely gutless. Gutless.
Still 7.5 and 50.5 for this Sunday in Dallas.
That's going to be a tough
up and
game.
away, Joe.
Jordan Love.
Up and
Jordan
away.
Love. Aaron Jones. Dontayvion Wicks. And let's not forget the secondary guys. Bo Melton. Malik Heath. Keep an eye out for them to hit pay dirt on Sunday.
I'm going to, obviously, we also have Rams and Lions. We've talked about that a lot. We'll do more about that later. And the Eagles and the Bucks. The one thing I did want to bring up with the Eagles and Bucks, I'm going to jump ahead to this, Joe, is playoff home dogs. Clearly, the Bucks are in that scenario on Monday night as they get ready to take on the Eagles. We also had the Texans before, who are home dogs in this spot. Did you know, Joe, past 10 years, home dogs, 8-3-2 against the spread in the playoffs. We have 2 chances for it this weekend. 8-3-2 is a pretty good number as well, Joe, for the winners.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. We also have a lot of rematches this year, right? We have Cleveland and Houston that played in the regular season, Miami and Kansas City, and Philadelphia and Tampa Bay, right? This was the Monday night game where Jalen Hurts supposedly was sick and he threw for 300 yards in the rain-soaked game. The game went under. And would they win it?
Flu game.
They won it. They won it by 11 or 12. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Baker tacked on a touchdown. I will say the spread is a little scary. I've been on the Eagles the last month of the regular season. They hit me every which way but Sunday. I'm not betting this game yet. Keyword is yet. I'm hesitant because the line is a little it leans to Tampa Bay in this situation. It really does. Home dog catching a field goal. I could see Baker stepping up. That defense has been atrocious. And Rashad White has come on in the rushing attack. I'm a little nervous with that game. This is the toughest game for Philly. They get through this, they could go to the NFC Championship. This is the one they got to get.
I would be with you, Joe, if it didn't look like Baker could barely walk last Sunday. And that's what gives me a problem. If Baker was healthy, you could probably get me in on this with you. And maybe you will by Monday night. But watching him in that Carolina game, I mean, every time he basically threw a pass or was going back off the field, he was in agony. And that worries me in this game coming up on Monday because they need to score points to win this game. All right, Ferrall Coast to Coast will come back. Golf Wednesdays on C2C. Cam Stewart, let's go. Sony Open in Hawaii. We'll start the first of our couple pick segments here on the show. We're back after this on the grid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles, ridiculous what they did this week.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast on a Wednesday. Carver High in for Scotty here on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us. It is Wednesday, and that means it is time to start breaking down this week's PGA Tour event, the second of the year, of course. Last week we had the Tournament of Champions with Captain Kirk getting into the winner's circle. Now our first full field cut event like normal. We hop, skip, and a jump over to Honolulu for the Sony Open, and Cam Stewart is with us every week as me and him give you the outrights, the top 10s and 20s, the first-round leader bombs, everything you could ever possibly want. Hi, Cam. It is great to see you as always. Before we get into this week, last week, first of all, you had the first big win of the year because you had Tagala for first-round leader, and that was ring the bell for us here on C2C, so great job by you. And we almost had a few guys sniffing around the top on Sunday to win that. I thought that Spieth was going to do it for us.
Me too.
It looked like he had the game, but there's always that one hole for Spieth. And sure enough, I guess it was 15 or 16, Cam, where he had the bogey after he had like 1,000 birdies on Sunday. He bogeyed that one hole on the back nine, and that did him in. But congrats to Kirk, Cam. That's a hell of a way to start the year.
People don't know Chris Kirk's story, too. This guy was down in the dumps. He's an alcoholic, had a lot of problems, and he fought his way back. It takes a lot of guts to do that and to become the player he can be. I know Kisner was in the booth, former Georgia Bulldog, big fan of Captain Kirk. Here's the deal, Carver. We're out of the gate hot. Tagala 45-1 first-round leader. You had Spieth. That's a top 3. By the way, Jordan Spieth always gets luck. It was the most unluckiest shot. It just trickled into the bunker on a side hill, and he was plugged. Like there was like a hole in there. Like the guy didn't rake it properly. He was done. The minute you saw that lie go, he's going to have a bogey at best. You needed to birdie that hole. Bad luck. And let's give a shout-out to our boy Brady Cannon. 70-1. See, Tagala, he should have won this tournament, Carver. His wedge went stale down the stretch. Too many pars on easy birdie holes. Kirk nutted a shot from about $160 to 2 feet. A tap in, wins by 1 stroke. That's golf. We had everybody on the leaderboard but Captain Kirk.
And look, you know what, Cam? Now, Tagala finally got in the winner's circle in the fall. I understand that. But he's had a lot of these. On late Sunday, final hole or two, where he's had a chance to win tournaments. I still go back, Cam, to when I had him at the Travelers 2 years ago, and he had the lead at 18, and he gave it up to Xander Schauffele there. He did it again. Like you said, he should have won this tournament last week. But Captain Kirk, to the victor go the spoils. And away we go now, off to Honolulu and the Sony Open. As always, here's the chalk at the top to kick things off. Now, when this opened on Monday morning, Cam, our boy Ludwig was actually the favorite. That has changed over the last couple of days. Now, Tyrrell Hatton is the favorite at 16-1. Aubert is 18-1. Matt Fitzpatrick is here at 18-1. Brian Harmon at 20. Russell Henley getting involved at 22. Kirk shoots up to 25 after winning last week. Corey Connors, Nat King Cole, JT Poston, Ben Ann. So we've got a couple names here at the top, Cam. We don't have, obviously, the Spieths and the Morikawas and guys like that, but we do have Matthew Fitzpatrick, Hatton, and Aubert.
Here's the thing. Matthew Fitzpatrick played pretty well last week, Carver. At one point, I was thinking, here we go. We both were on Fitzpatrick too, but another strong finish. I think he's rightfully one of the favorites at 18-1. I think that's a good price for Fitzpatrick in this field. This is the type of course he'll eat up. He did well on a longer course. This is a shorter course. Matthew Fitzpatrick, all he does is drive the ball straight, and when his putter's on, he'll beat anybody. Hatton as well. Hatton could play it a little bit longer, but he's very straight off the tee, and he's got a hot and cold putter. So very interesting. Aubert is a guy, Carver, hit or miss. Last week, he kind of got new, it was a lesson in Hawaii golf, wind golf, different type of course. So I don't know how he's going to react this week, probably better. But I left him out just because I'm sure of the unknown factors playing this type of tournament. He'll get better. Hey, this guy's going to win majors, maybe multiple ones, Carver, but he'll figure out Hawaii golf pretty soon. But I'm not going to take him this week at that price.
I am not either. All right, here's who I am going to take, Cam. Let's start the outrights for the Sony Open. I'm going to stick with Matthew Fitzpatrick this week.
Love it.
As my chalker play at 18-1. I'm going to get Eric Cole involved here at 28-1. I like him on this course. You know, sometimes guys are hot, and Tagala's a hot player, Cam. He can be either really bad or really good. So I'm going to think he can carry over last week and maybe try to put himself in position again at 35. I'm with the Todd Father this week at 40-1, Brendan Todd. And Will Zalatoris is back for a PGA Tour event. Now, look, he's probably not going to win this tournament, Cam, but you don't really get Will Zalatoris at 75-1 ever. I'm going to take a shot that he has got himself back to where he was, and maybe he'll be in the mix on Sunday.
You're right. If he keeps on playing well, Carver, you're going to get Zalatoris around the 20 to 25 mark, so take advantage now. I know he was a little bit rusty when he came out, but he had surgery, so it's going to take him a while. But you're right. That price is going to skyrocket. Maybe once we see him get full form, we'll really smash him one of these tournaments. Carver, I'm on the same thing as you. I like Fitzpatrick. He's my favorite guy at 18-1. I'm going with the little lefty that could, as you say, Brian Harmon. This guy won at Hoylake. Is this a Georgia Bulldog theme, Carver? Kirk with Harmon maybe this week? I don't know what I did, but I found that out. Eric Cole, we play him every week till he wins. Ben On, hot golfer. Nice top 5 performance last week. We got Justin Suh. Can't get enough of him. And I'm going back to your guy. Let us down on the weekend, but Hoagie Sandwich will do well at this course. Yeah, maybe at 80-1, that's a juicy Hoagie. Love it.
Love it. Top 5, 10s, and 20s for me, Cam. Now, we just talked about Aubert, but I the plus 400 for top 5 for a guy who in fields like this has sniffed around in them. I'm not going to play him to win, but I will play him for a top 5 at plus 400. I do have Brian Harmon on there like you for a top 10 at plus 230. Corey Connors for a top 10 at plus 280. How about Bhatia? He played pretty well last week too. I'm going to go top 20 there at plus 280. And how about Emiliano Grillo, the little Argentinian with a big heart at plus 320 this week in Hawaii, who ever since he won last year, Cam, he's been pretty consistent as well as hanging around the top of these leaderboards.
I got to be honest with you, Carver. It's like hockey betting. Like teams that are minus 500 sometimes should be minus 300. Grillo, it's opposite. Like you're giving me great odds of this guy. No respect. He gets no respect. He's always on the leaderboard. I love that pick. Top 10s, I got to go with my chalk. We get Harmon plus 230 and Fitzpatrick is plus 190. 20, Carver, we got the same guys. The Canadian, Corey Connors, fairways and greens. Man, if this guy can learn how to putt, he'd be like literally in contention every week. Plus 170. The Todd Father, plus 190. Putnam. Watch out for Andrew Putnam. Loves short courses, plus 220. And Bhatia, I'm reading your mail. This guy played great last week. Young kid. He's going to get better every week. Plus 240. Carver, I got a top 40 because that's the way I'm doing it this week. Give me Nate Lashley. He's my addiction. Plus 240. And Old Man Sink. The old geriatric, Stu Sink. Let's go. Plus 260 for a top 40. He can get it around.
You love nasty Nate Lashley,
I do.
Cam. You can't quit him. That is one of your guys. You love that dude. All right. First round leader bombs. And we can get it back to actual true bombs this week because we have a full field and not only 59 golfers. Let's do it. Batia started hot last week. Let's do it again. 65-1. Keith Mitchell. This is about his time of year. He plays well in January and February at all these West Coast and Hawaii events. We'll get him. Aaron Rye is a first-round leader. Staple at 75-1. Justin Suh at 75. Taylor Pendrith at 90. Buckley played well here last year, Cam. 110-1 there. And look who's back out of the injury tent. Our first-round leader guy, Johnny Vegas. He's hit for us a lot in the past on Thursday. A true Thursday warrior. Back from injury at 130-1 this week, Cam. Let's go.
Great price. I love these first-round leader prices. I'm going to go JT Poston, 35. Connors at 40. Keegan Bradley, your guy, at 60. Justin Suh always comes out of the gate hot, 75. Rybread, Aaron Rye, 75. And my man, Moops, Ryan Moore, not Taylor Moore, Ryan Moore, 100-1. Let's go. Let's do this, Carver.
How about that? Moops getting involved. I love it, Cam, that's for sure. Tremendous job as always. Let's stay hot here. How about we get in the outright winners circle this week here on the Pick segment. Next week, we go back stateside. We have the Amex coming up next week, Cam, which is always fun in La Quinta. Is that the one, Cam, where they play on the 3 different courses, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? Yeah, that's the one. That's 3 sets of first-round leaders next week. We got 3 sets of first-round leaders on Thursday. Let's cash them, Cam. Great job as always. Coast to coast. We'll come back. Lions share with Davis after this.
Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarter of the man his dad was. I'm sorry, he's kind of an embarrassment. The only thing I'll give him credit for, which is the only thing he's ever done right in his life, is get that team to Las Vegas for $6 billion.
Teams that bring in a lot of transfers, I was talking to Jeff about this, they need time. They're at a point now in conference play they can start to get rolling.
Ferrall Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We spent all offseason where the NFL said, hey, just so you guys know, running backs don't matter. If we then this year give the MVP to a running back,
the irony.
I am disappointed that they lost to FAU because secretly I don't really like this FAU team very much. I don't know, they're just not for me. And now they've completely legitimized the Owls.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Ferrall
backup quarterbacks.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
in-game live,
Just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
late
good betting.
night.
We waited for a 1.5. We got paid.
We
Did like a 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The brighter the lights, the bigger the stakes. Hunt or be hunted. Know your prey. This is a whole new jungle. This is The Lion's Share. Brought to you by BetMGM.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast on a Wednesday. Carver High in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have you with us. BetMGM is getting ready, of course. Big Game 58 is a couple of weeks away. And look what they've got for you. Bet $5 and get $158 instantly. What do you got to do? You got to download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android or visit BetMGM.com. You got to sign up and deposit at least $5 into your newly created account. Place a wager in the amount of at least $5 at standard odds price. Once you have placed a bet, you will receive $158 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager. You got to use bonus code SG158. BetMGM getting you ready for Big Game 58. Go and get involved. All right, it is time for the Lion's Share, brought to you by BetMGM. And, of course, we have Davis Maddock with us every day here on Coast to Coast. Fantasy Sports Today on Saturday mornings here on the grid as well. Davis, good to see you as always, my man. Let's start off with the Lion's Share plays because we have a lot of NBA games tonight. There is a ton going on. And why not start with two teams that have a combined 8 wins so far this season? We might as well get right to the biggest games of the night, David. We got the 5-30 San Antonio Spurs, the 3-34 Detroit Pistons. It doesn't get much better than this, Davis. There's always money to be made.
This is why I wake up in the morning, Carver. When I think about the job like that you and I are, the thing that we are blessed to do here on SportsGrid, we get to talk about sports for a living. We get to bet on sports. We get to tell people what we're betting on. I think about Victor Wembanyama playing up against a Cade Cunningham-less Detroit Pistons team. I took them last night against a crappy team. Turns out they were even crappier than that. We now have the Pistons on the second night of a back-to-back without their only good player. Isaiah Stewart remains out. We got Jaden Ivey out here. Killian Hayes trying to prove that he can be the 14th man. Killian Hayes is going to end up being a Laker, by the way. It's just not this season, but eventually he's going to be one of those guys who signs a veteran minimum with the LeBron Lakers, has a good 3-month run, makes some money, and then we never hear from him again. But we are taking the Spurs tonight. I mean, one, the Spurs are just marginally better, but also they have the best player. They got the best player amongst these two. And I do wonder, by the way, Pop has to absolutely hate losing these games. He cannot be having a fun time. No. This has got to be one of the least amount of fun that Pop has ever had. I think he'd like to book a win. I think he would like to book a win tonight against the Detroit Pistons.
It's very rare that they get to play a team that they have more wins than. So that's a very rare thing for the Spurs, extremely rare. So they will try to add to that total tonight in Detroit. Next, you mentioned the Pistons losing last night. That was to the Kings. The Kings are on a back-to-back as well. They go to Charlotte to take on the Hornets. Kings are 7.5-point road favorites. And the total right now, Davis, 230.5.
Yeah, it is going the other way, which I think is it's probably a little bit of a reflection on just how brutal the Hornets have been offensively. Although these are kind of the lines I like to attack a lot here when we do the Lion's Share, which is that we've got one decent offense against one bad offense, but also a bad defense. And I think in today's NBA, I think this probably would have been different 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think that combination of things would have been, that would have been under City a couple of years ago. But even a bad offensive team like the Hornets, they're still shooting a ton of threes, right? Terry Rozier is averaging 24.5 points per game. Did not have that one on my bingo card to start the year. And the Kings can't play a lick of defense, but they've got De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. That's a walking top 10 offense. So we are going to take the over 230.5 here in this one.
Over 230.5 down in Charlotte. All right, there. The game of the night, it's not the Spurs and the Pistons as much as we wanted it to be before, but it actually is the T-Wolves and the Celtics in Boston. Number one team in the West, number one team in the East. Back-to-back for Minnesota after they thumped the Magic last night. But a big line here, Davis. 9.5 the T-Wolves are getting in Boston.
Yeah, we do got a big one here. And I was like, this is kind of one of those where I wake up in the morning, I check the injury reports. You're like, okay, like what are we getting an Anthony Edwards rest? Are we getting Karl Anthony Towns has the flu? I think it probably is priced in a little bit with that back-to-back action. The Celtics are a little bit more rested over the last week of the season than the Timberwolves are. But I'm taking the Minnesota Timberwolves here. I mean, a couple reasons for it. The first being, I do think that these are matchups where Tatum has to work very hard on defense, which he will tonight against Anthony Edwards. I think those are spots sometimes to go against the Celtics. I mean, obviously the Celtics are like a great team, and it's not going to surprise me if they completely blow the doors off the Timberwolves. But also, this Timberwolves defense is going to make the Celtics not have a good time. Someone is going to have to dribble. Someone is going to have to pass on this team. I guess if the Celtics do end up covering, it'll be because Derek White and Drew Holiday played very well. But I think the Timberwolves are a pretty bad matchup, actually, for the Celtics. So I'm taking the T-Wolves plus 9.5.
Yeah, I would expect if Anthony Edwards is out there, a bounce-back night. He was dreadful last night. He left the game for a minute. He had 3 fouls in the first quarter. He barely played. I think he had like 6 points last night, Davis, or something like that. So you would like to think that maybe tonight you get yourself a big bounce back from Ant. The Jazz have been playing some better basketball lately. They've gotten themselves back to 18-20 in the West. Tonight, though, they have the Nuggets coming to town. Nuggets minus 6.5, 237.5 the total.
Yeah, the Jazz, I guess they are a pretty good story of why you don't bail on your season after 10 games. They get Lauri Markkanen back in their lineup, and I don't know, they're totally drawing live to basically have the same season that they had last season. In fact, right now, I believe they're 1 game shy of the play-in. They are just behind the Los Angeles Lakers, but how about that? The only 1 game ahead for the Lakers of the Utah Jazz. But come on, we are taking the Denver Nuggets tonight. I mean, Jokic is so funny. Like he had that like little a 3-game run where he played awful, and Mike Malone was like, "Come on, big fella, like we got to have some confidence in you." Then they play up against the Pistons the other night, and he refuses to shoot. He had 16 assists in that game. He's just like, I don't even want to be at work today, man. I just want to get my win and I want to go home. Yeah. So they did have that crazy loss to Oklahoma City. They did have a very narrow loss to Orlando, but these are the types of teams they clean up against, like lower, sub 500 teams. You're just not beating the Denver Nuggets. Like they are going to handle their business here. So we are taking the Nuggets minus 6.5.
Minus 6.5 for the Nuggets on the road. 1 or 2 more, and then I want to ask you something, NFL. Raptors had a tough night in L.A. With the free throws. The coach went berserk after the game. Now they get basically to go right back at it in the same arena against the Clippers, and they're catching 10.5. Gabe was on earlier, of course, that I think the Raptor number's too big. I mean, they gotta be a little upset after last night. I kind of agree with him, Davis.
I mean, I think it's a bit of a big number. Honestly, 10.5 to me says maybe someone's not playing though, like maybe Siakam ends up. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is just legit. I guess the deal with the Raptors is they can't score, dude. Like they got no shooters anywhere. And Quickly is helping. I mean, he is. Like I actually think that was like a pretty astute trade by the Toronto Raptors, and they clearly signaled in that trade. They don't want draft picks; they want players. And we got Kawhi Leonard signed his 3-year contract extension. So maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a hangover there. Either this one is a no bet or Raptors plus 10.5 for me. I think Gabe's probably right.
NFL this weekend, of course, we have Super Wildcard Weekend. We're getting a little bit closer to it. Let me ask it to you this way. As you look at the board, 6 games we have, is there one dog that's kind of screaming to you that you think is going to win outright this coming weekend?
I think it is the Rams. I think it would obviously just be so, poetic and perfect. Honestly, I guess either way that game goes, Goff gets his win or Stafford gets that win. You're kind of feeling good for both guys. They feel vindicated. But the Lions passing defense, 3rd worst in the NFL, net adjusted yards per passing attempt. They don't generate a ton of turnovers. They don't get a ton of sacks. It's not a good recipe against Stafford. They all got to rest, right? I think that was big. Kupp got to rest. Puka got to rest. I guess Puka played the first half. Kyron got to rest. Stafford got to rest. Like, they're all pretty healthy. I just think at this, like in the playoffs, this stage, great players win these games, right? Like, because the talent level, 53-man rosters, it's a lot closer than you think. The Commanders are not that far away from another average NFL team, but truly elite players are not replaceable. And the Rams have all of them in that game. I think St. Brown probably is the only like real blue chip player on the entire Lions roster. And the Rams have Stafford, Kupp, Puka, and Aaron Donald, and it's just hard to beat.
It is a great storyline. You got a bunch of them this weekend, that's for sure. Let me quickly ask you, since I won't talk to you again before Sunday, do you think that the weather will neutralize the Bills and the Steelers in Orchard Park? If you get all the snow and you get the wind, despite no TJ Watt, will that allow them to play on a more even playing field with Josh Allen?
I mean, maybe it helps the Steelers cover. Like, maybe they're able to cover, but I don't know. If I was, I think I would make the Bills minus 1 million money line here. Like, I just don't. It would be a big failure to lose a home playoff game to Mason Rudolph. I just honestly, I can see almost any of the dogs winning, but not the Steelers.
Look, you're right about that. I don't care if Allen's got to run the ball 25 times himself on sweeps. Yeah. They got to get the job done. Davis, tremendous job as always. We'll see you on Friday, of course. Warren Sharp tomorrow in the Lions chair. Davis back then. We're back coast to coast right after this.
The Lions Share, presented by BetMGM.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast on a Wednesday. Carver High in for Scotty here on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. Always good to have Coach James Young in the mix talking NBA rack. Coach, it is great to see you. College rack as well. We got NBA and college because college is kicking now. Once you get to January, Coach, it's on when it comes to college hoops, that's for sure. So we'll do that in a moment. Let's start here with a few NBA things. Number one. Were you surprised? And I get it. Kawhi has played all this year. He's actually been on the court. He's been healthy. He's been productive. It is the NBA, and you want to have stars. You're going into a new arena next year, etc. Were you surprised at the financial commitment, 153/3 that they gave Kawhi today? And obviously they'll probably double that up by giving around the same thing to Paul George so that they're in lockstep for the next few years. Were you surprised by that?
Honestly, I was until I wasn't, because it made sense, right, Carver High? Think about this, folks. Just remember that both PG and Kawhi both could have opted out after this year, and James Harden is a free agent. And we had talked about this, and I think I've talked about this with you, Mike. They had to make this work, right? Especially once when they went and got Harden. Steve Ballmer put all these chips in the middle of the table. And let's be honest, after a rocky start, they've been fantastic, Mike. I mean, you could argue, I just said this on my podcast, I'll be released tomorrow. Like, if you're a team in the West, do you want to see the Clippers healthy? Like, do you want to see PG? And here's the thing, Carver. Like, I think it's 2016-17 was the last time Kawhi played 70 games in a season. Think about that for a second. I know you had the COVID cancellation year. Then we had the shortened COVID year after that. But, Mike, he hasn't played that since 16-17. And not only is he playing like that offensively, Mike, he's playing like that defensively. Remember, folks, in that playoff matchup versus the Suns, go look at the tape. He was the best player on the floor before he got hurt. I don't even know if Phoenix would have beat him if he was healthy. But now that he's healthy and he's playing back-to-back 3 or 4 nights, Steve Ballmer, Mike, had to run it back with this crew going into that new arena. Now, the best part about this really quick is the length. 3 years. That puts Kawhi at about age 30, I think 35. It would put PG at 36. It would put Harden at 37. If they were to do the same thing, put them all together. So what they've done is they extended them, but not in a place where it's going to crush them at the end of their career.
No, it's true, Coach. The years is what's very important there once you get down to the 3. I don't think, Coach, that many people before last night knew that Darko Rajakovic was the head coach of the Toronto Raptors, but they found out today that he's the head coach because he had one of the all-time great post games. We're going to play it later on, me and Joe, in the last hour. But and I think he was right in 95% of what he was saying, especially in the fact that it is so obvious, Coach, when it's 23-2 in free throws in the fourth quarter, and I get teams get home cooking sometimes, but that's ridiculous, especially in what ended up being, 1-point game or 2-point game, 133, 131, whatever it was. That was pretty ridiculous last night.
Yeah, when you think about it, Mike, a team like the Lakers, they shoot an absorbent amount of free throws. They're 7th in the NBA at 24.6 points, 24.6, I should say, free throws attempted per game. Well, you start looking at Toronto. Toronto's at 22.4, so it's not a big difference. But, folks, personal fouls per game. Guess who has the least amount of fouls per game in the NBA? It's the Lakers at 16.9, right? So, when you look at a guy like Radakovich, the only thing people were talking about Radakovich for at some point was the fact that, did they steal the coach from the Knicks and all that lawsuit, and then they made a trade, which I still don't understand how you sue someone and they trade with them. But the other thing that's interesting is Toronto is 5th in the NBA in fouls per game at 18.6. So now you're looking at the fact that a team doesn't foul versus a team that never fouls, and the team that has LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I mean, AD shot more free throws than the entire Raptors team last night. So, listen, shout out to him. He's going to probably have to put a little, take some money out of the collection jar and pay some fines. But good for him, because we've been talking about this for years about the officiating, and especially the officiating of superstar teams.
Best in the East and best in the West tonight in Boston. T-Wolves and the Celtics. T-Wolves off a back-to-back. They destroyed the Magic last night in Orlando. Pretty heavy number here, Coach. Me and Davis were just talking about 9.5. Now, we don't know yet. Obviously, T-Wolves back-to-back. You don't get like a full extent of who might or might not be playing for them. I know Porzingis isn't playing for Boston. Edwards really almost took a night off last night. He had 3 fouls in the first quarter, barely played. He had like 8 points. So you'd think he's going to do a little bit more tonight. That does seem like a little bit of a heavy number, though, Coach.
It is an insane number for a team that you could argue is the best team. It has the best record in the Western Conference. So here's what you have to do, folks. You have to start looking at reports, right? So right now, Mike Conley is out for tonight, rest. Rudy Gobert is questionable. That could be the reason why the line it is where it is, because Big Rudy is a pivotal part of what they do. But folks, remember, Porzingis is out tonight for Boston, right? Drew Holiday's back. Al Horford's playing. Obviously Tatum's playing. So to me, this is more about the fact that maybe they think that, Rudy Gobert's not going to play tonight. But to me, I think that's a disrespectful number to a team that's been really good this year. And I think they can go into Boston and play with them. Why Carver High, especially if they have Rudy Gobert? They're the best statistical defense in the NBA. And even on back-to-backs, Mike, you notice, defense always travels. So I think they may be in that game tonight. That could be a live play tonight. But if Rudy is confirmed as in, you may see that line drop a little bit.
Yeah, it probably will go down just a hair, Coach, that's for sure. All right, college, a few things I want to get to you with. Number one, last night you saw number 1 and number 2 both lose. Now, look, Purdue, they're going to have these nights. They're definitely going to have one in March when it happens. Nice job by Hoiberg. Nebraska's playing some pretty good basketball. He's starting to turn that program around. But Houston losing at Iowa State, and I just thought about that a little bit more, Coach, because of this aspect of it. Houston's been a really good team the last few years. Sampson has built a great basketball team. And they've had basically 2.5 months off when they get into the American Conference, and they get to beat up on the East Carolinas, and they get to beat up on South Florida and all these teams they play. This is part of this new deal now with these teams in the Big 12. Houston don't got that no more, because even when you go into places like Ames, like last night, you got to play every night. I mean, Texas saw it in Cincinnati last night. These new schools in the Big 12, they're going to bring some good hoop into it as well.
Carver, you make a great point, because you know what the funny thing is? They all went there for football. Yeah. Houston's football team, trash. BYU's football team, trash. Central Florida, trash. Cincinnati, they lose Fickle, right? So they're still bottom rung. And then they come in, and these are 4 teams that are great basketball teams. And listen, Iowa State, TJ's done a great job, right? Let's be honest. You go in there, you could get picked off, right? 57-53. The key is I think it was either 12 or 14-0 before you can even blink. So I think what you saw, them get jumped. But here's what I'm going to say to folks that are going to be like, oh, Houston's not good. They didn't play anybody. I'm going to tell you something. Does Houston in the Big 12 make them less dangerous or more dangerous come tournament time? They may have more losses on their record, but they're going to be more dangerous come tournament time because they're battle tested. And then obviously with Purdue, they held Zach Edey down, right? I think 15-7 he had last night. Great job by Freddie Hoiberg. Remember, folks, speaking about Iowa State, Freddie Hoiberg did a hell of a job at Iowa State before he went to the NBA. People forget about how good he was at Iowa State. Freddie can coach, as you know. They got a young, exciting team. They can beat you at home. The key is beating them on the road. 13-3, best start for them. But here's the thing, Carver High. Two things. One, guard play is going to dictate. The guards for Purdue did not shoot the ball well from three, right? So now you can neutralize Edey a little bit. The second is this. There will be madness and upsets literally almost every night in college basketball. Yeah. Mike, because of NIL money in the portal, the margin is so razor thin between these teams that teams can get picked off any given night.
No doubt. Big East, we got a good one tonight with St. John's and Providence. Before I get there, though, I want to talk to you about Seton Hall because I saw you tweet about them this morning. And you know what, Coach? I was making a joke yesterday, and they didn't cover. They did win last night, but they didn't cover the number. I went after them with the UConn to open up the Big East season. I got hit over the head. I went after them in Providence. They won the game outright there, too. I got hit over the head. And then last Saturday was the last straw for me, Coach, because I said, they're at home, but Marquette's coming in. Marquette's a good team. I'm going to go after Seton Hall one more time. And what I get again, Coach, boom, boom, boom. 3 times they hit me over the head. I'm done. They're a good basketball team. I'm not going after Seton Hall anymore.
Well, here's the thing, folks. They have, first things first, I'm going to say this, and yes, am I talking about guys that are my friends and Shaheen Holloway, and more specifically my dear friend Ryan Whalen. This is the second miracle they performed. Folks, they won at St. Peter's. Listen, if you, Carver High lives up in Long Island,
it's
right?
True.
He's been to Jersey City, right? You go down JFK Boulevard to Common Paw and drive by St. Peter's and say, you'll win there.
I know the MAC, Coach. I know the MAC, and that ain't easy really anywhere in the MAC, but especially at St. Peter's. It ain't easy to win there. Not easy to win there.
And the key thing is this, and I said this on my podcast today, it's going to be released tomorrow. If Seton Hall had the NIL and budget money of a UConn, of a Villanova, of a Marquette, look out. Shaheen Holloway is one of the 10 best coaches in the country, and they got a backcourt that you've never heard of. Kadari Richmond and Al Amir Dawes. These two can hoop. Dawes has come on as of late. 23 versus Marquette, 25 versus Georgetown. This kid is a sniper shooting the ball well from three. Seton Hall is going to be a problem because I really think Shaheen Holloway is one of the 10 to 15 best coaches in the country. Best coach they've had since PJ Carlissimo. Forget Tommy Amaker. Forget everybody else. They better hold on to this kid tight because someone is going to give him that money. Ask Kevin Willard. He was the one who recruited all those players for Seton Hall.
Less than a minute, Coach. Providence and St. John's at the Garden tonight. Actually, no corner second. They're at the Garden. 7.5 the number here.
Well, here's the thing. Providence has been playing well, but here's two things. One, they had the injury to Hopkins out for the year, which was a really bad injury. Two, they're away from the dunk. St. John's has been up and down. This is why Patino went there. You're at the Garden. You want all these games at the Garden. St. John's gets this game up and down, wears them out. St. John's minus the points.
And Memphis is playing tonight. I know they're playing UTSA, and it's a fat number, but that is an impressive team to watch, Coach. You want to go watch Memphis, Penny Hardaway's team. They're going to be a problem when we get to March, and they'll probably cover the 19.5 against UTSA tonight. Coach, great job as always. I'll talk to you soon. Coach James Young, Coast to Coast. We're back after this.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. We're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro football today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. All right, Joe, it is time for this day in Carver High history. Let's go. 1982. The Bengals beat the Chargers in the AFC title game, or what we would now call it, Joe, the Freezer Bowl. You're going to get another one of those on Saturday night. And Dan Fouts in the Freezer Bowl. Also in 82, the same day, Coach, the NFC Championship game, the catch. That's right. The Dwight Clark, Montana to Clark in the back of the end zone as the Niners beat the Cowboys 28-27. 1996, Jimmy Johnson becomes the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Go ahead, Joe. How'd that work out for the Dolphins with Jimmy Johnson as the head coach?
Well, we got Jack Thomas there,
That's the claim to fame for Jimmy. They had Zach Thomas. 1998, Mark Messier gets his 1,000th career assist. He did it with the Vancouver Canucks, who he should have never played for. 2011, Auburn beats Oregon 22-19 for the BCS National Championship. I know everybody expected that game, Joe, to be like 56-53, but that was a hell of a game that year. That was Cam's Auburn team, of course.
That was Rudy Johnson. Got up off the mat and ran into the house.
Got off the mat. 22.
Oh, no,
well, 2 years ago.
It was Michael Dyer.
It was Dyer. It was absolutely Dyer. 2 years ago today, 2022, Georgia beat Alabama 33-18 to win the national championship. Stetson Bennett going off for the Georgia Bulldogs in that one. Of course, they won last year as well, the first of back-to-back titles for them. All right, Joe, we have a lot to do in the last hour. I have one more NFL clip. I have to play you Sean Payton before I move on. I am not leaving here today without you hearing Sean Payton about Russ. And then we'll get into the NBA. We got to play the Raptor coach. We've got lots of college rack tonight. Plenty to do. Coast to Coast, Hour 3 next on The Grid.